Right. Hello, everyone. Welcome. Thank you for coming out on a Saturday morning. My name is Sophia Garantiva. I am with the Planning Commission for Hillsborough County. With me, I have Jay Collins, also with the Planning Commission. In the back, we have Yasser as well. Who will be assisting us with our Spanish session, the next session at 11. And we also have Priya, our tech support. Yay. So this presentation is a little bit more informational than previous sessions. If anybody has been to the previous sessions we had over the summer, we're just going to go over the changes that the BOCC made during the August 12th public hearing, the changes to the future land use and the livable communities elements. So with that, I'll just continue.
If I may, anybody has a copy of the presentation? Because that's a little hard to see. Or have one, let me know.
Thank you, Yasser.
Thank you.
Oh, 1 second. There we go. All right, so the agenda for today, I'm going to do a little bit of a refresher, a couple of slides to get everybody used to the terminology that we're going to be using. Then we're going to go over the BOCC decision, review the actual changes line by line, go over the next steps, and then we'll open it up for a question and answer session. So with that, some of you might be familiar with this slide if you have gone to the previous community meetings. This is a little bit of the outline of the policy documents that we've been working with over the past few months, 15 months or so. So the top is the Hillsborough Comprehensive Plan, and this is kind of just how they all relate to each other, because I know there's a lot of documents that we've been updating. The comp plan is the land use, regulates the land use, and then under that, the documents that regulate the goals are the livable communities element, the future land use element, and the community plan, which everybody is familiar with. This is what we're updating. And then underneath that are the two land development code documents that we've also been working on for the downtown overlay and for the Wimauma Village residential 2. And the two that we're going to be focusing on today are the ones in blue, the livable communities element and the future land use element, as those are the ones that were transmitted to the state at the last hearing. So a little bit of background. The area shaded in blue is the Wimauma Village Residential 2, which is a future land use. Again, from the previous slide, we learned that that is part of the future land use element of the plan. And then a little bit more about the future land use element. As it stands right now, if somebody wants to develop, they have to develop to a density of 1 per 5 acres. But this area is special as people can, a developer can come in and ask for 2 dwelling units per acre if they meet certain criteria. And one of those criteria are the community benefit options, which, as you can see, on the left-hand side or right-hand side, that was a picture from one of our previous community meetings, one of the activities where we presented all the community benefits that we had at that point and asked for some feedback and what the community thought. But the community benefit options were basically developed to support the community needs. And these are different tasks and different improvements that developers can choose from. And these will also serve the community needs. I'll go into them in a little bit more detail further in the presentation. But again, this is one of the criteria. They have to meet a certain number, depending on the size, in order to be eligible to ask for that increase in density from the 1 per 5 to 2 acres, 2 dwelling acres per unit, 2 dwelling units per acre. In each new development within the WVR2 will be required to choose community benefits to implement. Also part of the community benefits list is the requirement to meet with the school district, the county, and hold a community meeting to discuss the selected community benefits. And this is for developments of more than 50 units or for 50 units or more. And lastly, the community benefits are classified into 2 levels according to priority. So we have a tier 1 and a tier 2, with tier 1 being the community benefits that we want the developers to choose first, basically. So with that, we'll go on to the decision that the BOCC made. So on October 12th, the BOCC voted unanimously to transmit the amendments. So these are the amendments to the comprehensive plan, which are within the livable communities element and the WVR2 land use element. Transmit those changes to the state for their review. And they're transmitted specifically to the Department of Economic Opportunity. So with that, we'll go into the actual changes. So one of the first changes is actually in the future land use element, policy 48A7. And it was the removal of that last sentence to exclude consideration of capacity projects external to the projects in the review process. So what that means is the folks that review transportation elements can also look at other projects, capacity projects, not just, around the project, and not have to exclude that. The next change was to the future land use element policy 48A14, which added, as you can see the text in red, another indicator, a timeliness indicator. So what that means is that developers need to meet, as you can see now, the 4 criteria in order for a project to be considered timely in development. So that the last one, the number 4 that was added is related to internal capture, which is a transportation term, instead of the trips being leaving the project, so vehicle trips leaving the project, you try to capture them on site or within as close to the project as you can. And in order to measure that, this was actually proposed by one of the commissioners. They're saying that the capture rate has to be through either a mixture of uses on site or by being creating commercial or that mixture of uses along 674 within 2 miles of the project. So it has to have some sort of correlation. Another motion made by the BOCC was to create the Wimauma Community Plan Action Task Force. And one of the motions that did not pass, and then we'll talk about this a little bit more, was to add language to one of the community benefits options dealing with transfer of development rights. So with that, we're going to go into the community benefit options. Don't be scared. There's a lot of redlining, but we will clean it up for you in a couple of slides. Just want to make sure everybody sees exactly where those changes are. So in the community benefit options list, the first major change was the removal of the community benefit option number 1, which was to have 6 types of building forms within the project. The code currently allows for 4. So the adding 6 was the incentive, adding 2 more different building types. And also this language was eliminated from the list, but it was added into the actual land development code. So the Board of County Commissioners said to remove this from the list, but to put this language into the land development code to make it a requirement. So that 4 now goes to 6, if that makes sense. Also, the removal of the mobility fee alternative satisfaction agreement as a community benefit. So just to remind everybody, just because these were removed from the list does not mean that they're not possible. It's not possible to do these things. These things can still be done by developers. It's just not incentivized through this list. Also removed from the list was benefit number 5, which was the dedication of land for public schools. the relocation of one of the community benefits, community benefit number 10, which was the construction of new non-residential uses in the downtown area. So if a developer comes in, they have the option to construct commercial or retail use in downtown as part of the residential project they're proposing. So this was moved from tier 2 to tier 1 to make it a higher priority. And also the relocation of community benefit number 14, which we refer to as the catch-all benefit, from tier 2 to tier 1, again, making it a higher priority. This community benefit was created to kind of capture those things that we couldn't foresee. Things like, or foresee the timing of. So things like affordable housing, creating or installing internet access, things like that, things a developer could possibly do above and beyond what what the community benefit list already has. The next change was adding language to community benefit option number 7, again, related to the transfer of development rights. So we'll go over a little bit more about what transfer of development rights are, if you guys aren't familiar, but this basically says that any of those sending areas, so the areas that the rights are leaving, those areas cannot count towards open space or towards the open space requirement for that project. The removal of green and lead neighborhood design from the community benefits list, that was something else that was removed. But again, a developer can come in and create a project that meets LEED standards. It's just, it won't be considered a community benefit option. We also added, they also added language to community benefit number 11 for the internal and open space that exceeded 25%. So if a developer comes in and develops a project that exceeds the required open space and recreation space by at least 25%, that land would now need to be public and accessible. That was the original intent, that those spaces would be open to anybody in the community, but this just adds the language in there to solidify that. So the removal and dedication of additional on-site land for neighborhood center from the community benefits list, that was something that was removed, and the community center is only required for projects that are over 100 acres. Removal of the additional 25% landscaping and screening. It was erroneously put in there. It wasn't supposed to be there in the first place. So that was removed to just clean up. Also, the relocation of community benefit option number 6 for construction of on-site non-residential uses within the neighborhood center. That was relocated from being a higher priority to being in tier 2. And this is the clean version of what it looks like. So everybody is aware. I know it was a lot of red lines, and also in your packets, the ones that have the agenda also show on the back page a list of these as well. So if you wanted to take a closer look at them and you wanted to read them in more detail, because I know it's a little bit far, the screen. And you can see it went down from like 14 to 8. 4 in tier 1 and 4 in tier 2. So a little bit over the next steps. Today is the community meeting, September 18th. The next BOCC hearing will be the adoption hearing in October, on October 14th. And then on December 31st, the moratorium for WVR2 ends. A moratorium? Correct. They can start applying for submitting applications for rezonings and land use changes if so. And now I'll open it up for questions. I know that was a lot of information and I tried my best to go over as much as I could, but I'm available for questions. So is Jay Collins in the back. And Sure.
Real quick, sir, I'm sorry, before you ask your question, we would like you to please move up to the seat that's right here, because again, we are doing this via Zoom, so this way the folks that are at home can hear your questions. I appreciate that.
So my name is Michael Ball, and one of the questions I had was, as I look at the amended version of this, a lot of this is being put on the developer to constantly develop. Where's the county at in terms of putting in, like, helping with the sewer systems and stuff like that? There's no bonds I'm seeing being put out for the local development. It seems like we're very relying on the developer, and we're just kind of feeding this self circle again, where we're at the hands of the mercy of the development instead of actually leading it, just waiting for the developer to say something. Where's the county putting money behind this operation?
So that's a good question. One of the projects that I know that's going on is utilities. All right. You know, there capital improvement project that's going on right now, or they're starting. Right, there's that they're in the beginning processes of doing, and that's going to bring more sewer and potable water through. But I know a lot of this, the community benefit options, just to go back a little bit, the community benefit options are the incentive for a developer to get more density. So this is for that area, WVR2, where, and if Jay wants to help me out,
I would say where Sophia was going with it.
yeah.
WVR2 is wholly outside of the urban service boundary. Where we are right now, the county provides water and sewer. There is the idea to do some retrofitting to bring water and sewer out further into this area, since you do have a low pressure gravity feed, which for the sewer system is troublesome. Get some kinds of commercial uses in here. Like you can't do a car wash or a laundromat on 674 because of the fact that you don't have the right kind of sewer system. The county is aware of that, and the county is looking to actually upgrade those sewer facilities. The first opportunity that will actually get into a capital improvement, from my understanding, is the fall of 2022. That is not what I do for the county, but that is the word on the street. Now, on the flip side of that, because you were talking about, seems like a lot of pressure is put on the developer to develop out here. What is the county doing? The pressure has always been on the developer outside of the urban service boundary. So those areas of WVR2. So if we traveled a little bit further south and we got to Bishop, the south side of Bishop is in the rural service area. The north side of Bishop is in the urban service boundary. If a property owner wants to develop on the south side of Bishop and they want to develop up to 2 units to the acre, that property owner is responsible to bring water and sewer to their site. On the north side of it, there is the ability for them to hook into the county system, or if the system isn't there, they can pay to have it brought to them. And then every time somebody else hooks into it, that individual investment, that person gets money back because you and your neighbors hooked into the county water. But that's on the north side of Bishop. On the south side of Bishop, any of WVR2, the developer must bring water and sewer if the developer wants to put 2 units to the acre. If they don't want to do 2 units to the acre, they just want 1 home on every 5 acres, then they can just have a well, have a septic, and that's that. That help answer those questions?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir, did. And the one follow-up question I had was, I noticed on the tier 1 stuff you guys have, one of the concerns that, because I've seen this happen in a couple other developments, the easy answer seems to be, we'll have the developer put in a public park, rather than some of the other needs that are there for development. That seems to be the easy answer piece to them. And my concern is, let's try to make it so it's not, that's not the easy answer. Let's try so we actually something to actually develop it, because these answers, they can pave it and that's the cheapest option. They're going to select the cheapest option rather than where's the, no, this is what we need here. This is what you're going to put in. Give you more direction instead of here's the option. Because easy, I know because I live in a developed planned community. They did the parking. That's the easiest answer. That's the cheapest answer. Where's the direction? Here's the actual need. Here's the fit. That's the concern I have.
Yeah.
Thank you.
And I think, and Sophia, you can add on to this, is I think the BOCC heard that comment. And that's the reason why the BOCC made a lot of those changes that they made, because they saw some of the things that were put in there as responsibilities the county already has, a developer already has, something that will occur. As I was talking with Brian earlier, I said, yes, the school part was removed, but you're still going to get schools here. The schools will just not occur through this process. So there will be other things that will occur. The other issue involved in this is that these are tiered and ranked by the size of the development that comes in. So if you got a couple dozen acres, you only have to do one of these, but a couple dozen acres is only bringing a couple dozen homes. If you have several hundred acres and you're doing a large master plan community, you might have to do as many as 6 of these. So will you get a park? Maybe, but you will also get some of the other things on that list, because you're not going to be able to provide 6 parks unless the Board of County Commissioners deems that those 6 parks are what this community needs. And also one further step within that is we have some community meetings set up. You want to talk a little bit about the community meetings for the CDOs?
Yeah. So the language reads right now, any development over 50 units, the developer needs to meet with the community, with the school board, and with the county. So at that community meeting, and we're looking into possibly expanding that to 2 community meetings, the developer has the opportunity to speak with you all and work out which exactly benefits they're going to develop. So you will all have a voice when it comes to that, because they need to. That's a requirement. They need to meet with you. And we're still working on the notification process, but right now, as it stands, it's all the community groups within the Wimauma village area. So the entire thing, not just WVR2, but the entire community plan. So everybody will be able to have a voice when it comes to that.
And lastly, with that, while the developer is the one who puts the application to say what they're going to provide, the developer in the end doesn't make the decision. The Board of County Commissioners makes the decision of whether or not those are meeting the intent of the policies, the comprehensive plan, your community plan, and any other supporting information that may be presented during that rezoning case.
There might be input from the task force as well. The one on the task force, that's the-
Could very well be. Again, that's something that's outside of our scope, but by all means, I can see something like that occurring if that's the direction this community and the county take. Any other questions? Again, please, come on up. Jessica, please.
Good morning. Thank you for the opportunity to speak with you today. I have a few questions. First, just now, you just mentioned that the board has discretion. So am I understanding that even if a developer comes in and meets the criteria and provides the required number of community benefits, has the meeting, the board can still has discretion to deny that proposed development because, let's say, they provided option number 1 instead of option number 2, and the county preferred option number 2?
It would be their discretion as the authority to deny a rezoning. So, yes.
But is it your opinion that under the comp plan language, they have that discretion to deny if the developer didn't choose their selection of community benefits?
Well, again, I'm not a member of the county attorney's staff, to be able to speak to such matters. But in the end, the authority for granting that rezoning is the Board of County Commission.
Right. I understand. I understand that. I'm just curious. I just wasn't sure if the language was specifically drafted to allow that flexibility for the board, even if a developer comes in with all of its benefits. And here's why I asked.
Mhm.
The community benefits started out, let's say at 13, if you take out the erroneous one, and now it's down to 8. And if you have a community that is over 320 acres, you have to provide 6 benefits, 2 from tier 1 and 2 from tier 2, or the rest from, tier 1 or tier 2. I tried, now I'm not a planner, but I attempted to do a planning exercise, and it was very difficult to meet all of those requirements, especially if you had a project or property that was not along the Tico easement or not along the trail system, so you couldn't utilize that benefit. So with that, you really, if you have a project over 320, you have to do all except 2. And those 2 may not be even possible to meet. So to me, there's some concerns that every project could be denied because it's impossible to, let's say that county commission wanted transfer development rights. Well, what if they don't have anywhere to transfer it to?
Mhm.
So how do we meet that?
Yeah, so that's a great point. This is something that we as staff also looked at. We were somewhat concerned with, because one of the things that Jessica, you were mentioning about when you said the comprehensive plan, I'm bound for my job to the comprehensive plan. If we had a zoning staff member here, the zoning staff member would say they are bound by the zoning code. That's our lane. That's what we stay in. They call it the 4 points of the page. I'm not supposed to get outside of that. I'm not supposed to have an opinion because there's policy that's written. The board has that latitude, right? So let's take that one step further. Because of a lot of the conversations that were coming out of the community, that's why we put in that catch-all. The catch-all as a community benefit option is basically looking at what is something that provides a goal for your community through the community plan or through the comprehensive plan. It's the same language that's also within the BOM community for that. So one of the things that we're looking at is to say, I don't know if you guys want to be in front of the board and saying, I know that they want to provide transit, but what we really want is better internet access. They asked us at a community meeting, which would you rather we do, transit or an internet access, because you can only use it once. Well, what if you could use it more than once? So what if that community benefit option, which is a catch-all, does what it's supposed to do, which it actually is providing that benefit, say transit, say internet access, or any of the other things that this community is asking for and has asked for to memorialize it through the comprehensive plan or through its community plan. So that is one of the options, again, an option that we will be providing the Board of County Commissioners for consideration, is to ask whether or not some of the community benefits, such as that one, should be utilized more than once if it meets the intent of the community plan in the comprehensive plan.
That's an interesting solution. I think that's very creative. I like that. Another question I had was, I understand in the land development code, I believe, possibly, I guess the comp plan requires this community meeting with the county, the school board, and the community. With the school board, with the land dedication to schools being removed as a benefit, is there still a benefit to meeting with the school board or requiring a meeting with the school board?
Yeah, I would say so, because again, the school district of Hillsborough County is looking for sites. Anytime a community is growing by leaps and bounds like this community is, the school district, parks, libraries, fire, EMS, everybody is looking for an opportunity to serve down here. So if somebody comes in with 200, 300, 400 acres, then yes, the school district would like to have a conversation with you about the possibility of siting a school.
And presumably, if that conversation led to the school saying, we need this many acres for a new school, and the developer was willing to dedicate that land, that could qualify as one of those catch-all community benefits.
Yeah, again, I believe that if it were read into, that you might be able to plead that case to the board. And again, in the end, the board is the final say-so of that. Is it an expressed community benefit? No. Has it been removed? Yes. So obviously you take that with a grain of salt to bring to the board something that the board has actually removed.
So I had a quick question about benefits, new benefit number 5, which is the transfer of development rights benefit. I understand the board added language that would say lands may not contribute to 40% open space requirement. How would you calculate that amount of lands? Because you're transferring density, you're transferring units, but it doesn't say how big that space would be. So how would that work in practice?
Sure. So for the transfer of development rights, there's a 100% bonus. In WVR2, if you meet the intent of the plan, you can develop 2 units to the acre. That would be moved into the urban service boundary, into the receiving zone, which is around Bethune Park, right? And that would move to 4 units to an acre in there. It's capped at that 4 units to the acre. So you're removing 1 acre at 2 units in WVR2, and you're moving them to 1 acre at 4 units in the areas around Bethune Park. That would then be necessitated with some sort of an agreement through the county to delineate that area on a site plan to say that that is where you have transferred development, or it might be a note on a site plan that is then later delineated, but it at least would be put on a site plan to say that you have removed X amount of acreage from your site, and that may not be utilized for anything because you've removed the density. So for all intents and purposes, there's no development right on that property anymore, and you would not be able to count it towards your open space requirement.
Okay, so in that, within the requirement, there's a minimum of 10% of the base density. So could you do like a quick calculation for me that would, like, if you have 100 acres and you wanted to utilize that benefit, what would that look like? How many acres would you have to put aside to, not develop and not count towards open space?
So yeah, 100 acres, what's going to be 10%? Because I mean, again, it's truthfully, when you're counting densities in this, it's a 1-to-1. There's a multiplier in it, but you're still doing by acre for percentage. So you're going to take 10% of that land, 10 acres, and that's going to be 20 units that you have in WVR2. And you're going to move those 20 units up to the area around Bethune, and it's going to become 40 units. Again, it's only supposed to be designed for 4 units to the acre. So the idea there is primarily for some of the smaller landowners in the community who might want to actually transfer some of that development, or for another individual to actually assemble property in the receiving zone to actually build on it.
So we're talking increasing density. Is that what we're talking about? The amount of bodies and people, we talk about transferring from one area to the next?
Yeah, so transfer of development rights is basically the idea of going, I am in the rural service area, and I'm going to take that home that's in the rural service area, and I'm going to move it into the urban service area, because the rural service area, by definition, does not have the same amount of facilities, public facilities. The public investment is not the same that's out there. However, these areas can build to 2 units to the acre if they meet criteria. So another idea was to remove some of that density. TDRs have been around for a long time. Remove some of that density from there and put it in areas that the community sees as being appropriate for some increases. And again, these are very slight increases. So you guys, I'm sure, have been around Bethune Park up there, right? So that is primarily single family area, okay? It's zoned at 6 units to the acre. So 4 additional units to the acre would go to 10 units to the acre. You still can build single family detached up there on lots anywhere from 4,000 and 5,000 square feet, or a developer might want to do single family attached, like some townhomes. The transfer of development rights is not designed specifically to provide large-scale apartment buildings like what you would see on 301. That's not at all, it will not support that type of density.
As a follow-up to Jessica's question, you said 100 acres,
Mhm.
if the 10% would be 10 acres.
Right.
Okay, but now is the open space requirement for that 100 acres, is that based on the 100 or now is it based on the 90?
No, great question. Right. So no, it would be based on the 100 because you are working through that 100 acre that you have.
So effectively, your open space requirement would become 50% because you have the 40% open space requirement plus this 10% set aside. So effectively 50%, so 50 acres would have to remain open.
Mhm. Yep.
So along that open space requirement, and I apologize, I will be done very soon. Okay. So along that open space requirement, the benefit number, new number 7, old number 11, which is the internal recreational open space, which exceeds regulations by no less than 25%. And then, of course, the board added additional language to say that land had to be open to the public. How is that calculated with respect to the minimum open space requirement of 40%? Is it in addition or
No.
is it?
Well, actually, yeah. So the idea of it here is that you have 30% open space that's contiguous. That is totally unimproved open space. So those are going to be wetlands and fields and whatever it is. It's just around areas that are around. The 10% that is internal to the site might be things such as where we are today, where you have a playground, or it could be a large-scale linear park that is actually running through the middle of a community. You would then need to provide 25% additional space of that 10% internalized to provide that benefit. And then that 25% would be wholly the responsibility of the HOA, but would allow for public access unless it was then deemed that the county would accept it as an actual park.
So let's go back to the 100 acre
Mhm.
example. How would this apply to 100 acres if the community wanted to utilize that benefit?
Sure. So if you have 10% that is of that 100 acres is 10 acres, then 25% of that 10 acres is 2.5 acres. So you would provide an additional 2.5 acres within that 10 to go to 12.5 acres. And that's the internal capture of the open space for the community.
Okay. Last question, has the planning commission staff considered any of these, kind of converting any of these community benefit options into a fee in lieu option that would allow for, a developer to do, maybe not all of them, but certain ones where that would work, to pay into a fund for that, to meet the intent of that purpose. So for example, providing non-residential uses within downtown Wimauma, if the developer doesn't have an ability to effectuate that benefit, but they wanted to pay into a fund that would say give grants to new businesses within the downtown Wimauma. Is that an option that has been considered?
Yeah, it has been considered, and it's a great question, Jessica, because it was one of the first things that we actually looked at because we thought it was just easier, honestly, was to put every home has a value on it and go ahead and have the developer cut a check. When we brought that to the county attorney's office, that was seen as problematic since there are already a variety of different impact fees that are paid. And in that case, the law may say that you are actually asking for that developer to contribute for their development twice. And so once that money is used, that money would immediately be given right back to the developer. So the county would be basically just loaning, the money. It would just be a circle. There wouldn't actually be anything. We'd still all end up paying for it.
Interesting. I would encourage you to speak to the county attorney's office again about that, not with respect to infrastructure or where we already have impact fees, but for other issues. And I know the law is complicated.
Yeah.
But
I'll take it. I'll take it one step further, Jessica. Again, I think the the vessel in which to actually get a $50,000 grant from a private developer to a nonprofit, so the nonprofit can provide the $50,000 grant to provide facade improvements along 674 is a good idea, but one that is wrought with problems to actually effectively do it. However, I don't own any of this property. I'm not trying to ask for a community benefit. So if a developer put that forward and perhaps somebody in the Board of County Commissioners said, I like that idea, then maybe they would actually look into it to actually see if it is implementable.
Is that something where economic development council would step in and we have a meeting? Is that the vessel?
So,
Instrument that does it?
so we do have an economic development department here in the county. And we've had some conversations with them about some of that, and that is not something currently that they work through. Now, on the flip side of that, obviously, if this area had a chamber of commerce, different types of things like that, that might be boosters and supportive of that. But again, I think the issue, and if Yasser wanted to speak to it, I think the issue is how do you do that? And how do you do it to where it can be repetitively done?
That's where you can trip. So just one point, I'm the board member for the residential chamber of commerce in this area. So if you need input on that, that's all.
Okay. Yeah, again, I think there's merit to the idea. It's just, again, the 4 points of the paper. That's what I have to work with.
Thank you for indulging me. Questions?
Does anyone else have any questions?
I have a question.
Yeah.
Hi, Jay. Hi, everyone. My name is Josh Wobble. So I heard, was your name Mr. Yassner?
Yeah, yes, sir. No problem. Yes, sir.
Yes, and you're part of the planning commission?
Yes, sir.
Okay. I'm not putting you on the spot. Something you had said earlier that I found interesting and honestly kind of concerning is the mention of the task force. To my understanding, there's some type of Wimauma equity task force that's going to be put into place. Is that correct? And that's what you mentioned earlier in terms of, I'm kind of pivoting off of, I'm sorry, I think it was Jessica's question on whether or not the board has kind of carte blanche to override a legally presented plan that met all of the requirements, but because they decided, hey, I don't want you to put that one, I want you to put this one, they could then make an override to technically a legal plan that was submitted. It was mentioned that this task force, which to my understanding is just going to be regular non-elected civilians, correct? That's what that task force would be?
So again, the Board of County Commissions has made a motion to actually enact a force to study it. But again, there is nothing that we have in paper to say how that will function. And we have not actually been charged to do anything. From our understanding, that is right now a conversation between the county administrator's office and the board. The planning commission has not been brought into those conversations.
To suggest that a non-elected board or an official planning commission would be able to go in and override a plan on equal grounds as the county commissioners level, that would be very concerning to hear, because that's where you get into the dangerous realm of tit for tat or personal vendettas where they can just say, no, I don't want to approve this.
If I may, the original idea, if I, and again, if Constantina's notes can help, is that the task force was gonna be looking at that the plan is implemented correctly in time, not in terms of what you're saying. You're trying to keep the plan on track. That's
Okay, it's just that was brought up when we were talking about whether or not the board could override, and I wanted to make sure I understood the reach of that equity task force.
Right.
Because then you're getting into the realm of who decides what's
I know,
equitable
I'm
and
just,
fair.
you know,
Yeah.
Okay.
There,
Okay,
there,
cool. So,
there are dozens of groups in the county that show up to say, we support this or don't support this. And that would be what this is.
And again, I don't want to say, you know, take her voice, but the problem is a lot of plans get.
yeah,
asked,
this is not
and
about
they
their
don't
voice,
go
this
anywhere.
is
So
that
that's what will help
an
push it along.
official member made that suggestion that they might be able to have equal power as the Board of
No,
County
that's not-
Commissioners.
no,
Okay.
take that back.
Okay, very good. All right, thank you very much.
Yes. Yep. Wanda, did you have a question?
I don't really have a question related to this meeting, but we talk a lot about developers, okay. Well, sometimes it's kind of in the realm that some mysterious person will come from outside the area and is considered a developer. Well, there are times when people that already live here want to develop their own property. So sometimes we just get lost in that mysterious developer person being like a straw man. And I just want to say that, you know, there's been times when we want to develop our property and we ran into red tape too. So we're considered a developer as residents. And I'm a resident of Wimauma, long time. And I'm here basically to say that a lot of the residents feel like they've been left out of this process, that they haven't had their questions answered, that there's not a consensus on the things that we want, that you're saying a lot that this is what the community says they're asking for. Well, who is the community that's saying that? Because a lot of residents feel like they haven't been involved. So just to rehash this never started out as a grassroots resident-driven campaign. You know, there was no emergency other than we're asking for jobs. You know, if you remember, if you recall, that the whole issue was, you know, Wimauma residents asking for jobs. Well, we don't agree that the community benefits should completely eliminate the jobs requirement. You know, that's one of the things that there's no consensus on. So you don't have a consensus with Wimauma residents that this plan should move forward for adoption. And that, you know, we still don't agree that the overlay, which was originally intended to be just the town center, is now the complete urban service area in Wimauma. You know, those answers, we never got answers to those questions that we had. When we saw the map of how it was districted out, you know, District 1, District 2, District 3, nobody went to the people that are in these districts now and said, well, this is how it's going to work. We might have funding to put in this district, but not funding to put in that district. Now you've got this district upset because they see things happening in another district, and there's no cohesiveness there. So we haven't had our questions answered about, you know, the districting. And early on, when we first had a presentation, one of the first presentations after the threat, a lot of people thought that this was just going to be the downtown area. You know, and then they said, well, we're not really involved and we don't live in the downtown. We don't really care about that. And then they come to find out this covers every square inch of Wimauma. So there's conflicts there. So there's too many unresolved conflicts and to have a consensus with the residents. So that's really, you know, what I'm here to basically state, that the only person who is a Wimauma resident that's actually had any real vote is on the planning commission, and she voted no on this plan. So I think that's a conflict right there, to tell you that the only Wimauma resident who's actually had a vote in this has actually voted no. So that's you know, basically what I'm here to say is that, you know, the residents are not in consensus on this. And if it moves forward for adoption, then there's probably going to be challenges.
So Wanda, you brought up a bunch of good points. And these are some questions that we've been working through for 18 months on a lot of this. So one of the things about the downtown overlay, real quick, that I think you guys will be interested to know, Tallahassee did House Bill 401, which actually restricts the ability of local governments to put design rules on single family and two family homes unless they actually do a PD. So what that means is where we are right now with Bethune, any of these areas around here, single-family homes and two-family homes cannot be regulated via design standards. So it is 100% a voluntary issue for the overlay, 100%. If you do want to use the overlay, you must go to over 6 units to the acre, which also means you're probably going through a plan amendment, you're using a TDR or something else involved in it, and then you would go to a PD if you wanted to. You can still just simply rezone. If you are doing a townhouse project, you're doing an apartment complex, you would come in under the overlay because those are types of densities that you guys don't see very much here today. And mobile home parks are not regulated by it at all. So if you have a mobile home park or you would like to put a mobile home park in your area, then it is not regulated at all through the overlay. You just go through the normal processes that you have in the county. The jobs requirement is really interesting when you think about it. Do you guys, so you live here, I mean, this is what I do. None of y'all do this, but at the same time, think for a minute. Can you think of anywhere else in the county where if you want to build a home, you have to actually be able to show that there are jobs? So it's very unique. And it's one of those things where I think back in the day in 2006, 2007, I think it was a good idea what you guys tried to do to say, well, we want to encourage employment and we still want to encourage employment. But from 2006, 2007 to where we are today, the amount of employment that has been generated through this, it doesn't really seem to have gone gangbusters. And the other thing that's of interest is that there's actually a deficit to the number of jobs that are needed to the amount of homes that have actually been permitted. So even if somebody today says, I'm going to do a Class A office space, I'm going to bring $60,000, $70,000, $80,000 jobs to downtown Wimauma, somebody already has a rezoning in, and they're going to go, thank you very much. And then you, Wanda, who want to develop your property, are going to say, but I just worked so hard to get those people to come down here to build. And somebody is going to say, I was in line before you. So what this will do will level that playing field and allow you, Wanda, to have more opportunities, we hope, and more options to develop your property. And that is, again, one of the things that we were looking at when we did some of these community benefit options, because there are small landowners here who want to develop their property. We're not talking about just people that want to develop 300, 400, 500 acres and sell it to Lennar. There's a lot of people here who have 10, 20, 30, 40 acres, and they may want to build some homes on their property. So we wanted to make sure that we have something that provides, such as that TDR or the catch-all, because again, you may say, I'm not about to go and try to actually build a store on 674. All I'm trying to do is develop my 15, 20 acres, but you might be able to find something that you think will benefit your community in those CBOs. So what we're hoping in the end is that while it's not a perfect process by any means, and I appreciate the conversations we've had, Wanda, I'm hoping that you feel like you have more options to develop your property today than what you had then, because I won't be able to say anymore, well, not me personally, but they won't be able to have the conversation anymore of there are no jobs here, you can't develop your property. So I know that we're almost out of time. So I did want to ask if are there any more questions? If we got time for one more, or if you guys have other questions, I can certainly talk to you guys outside because I know that the next session is about to start. So I want to thank you guys very much. I want to thank Sophia
Thank you.
for providing a great presentation.
So I'm gonna change this out. Hola, bienvenidos a Gracias por venir. Me llamo Sofía Garantiva. Soy una planificadora con la Comisión de Planificación en Hillsborough County. Hoy me acompaña
Yacer González, por supuesto.
y Jay Collins, que ya está afuera. Y todos los dos, y Priya también, que está ayudando con el Zoom y todos los técnicos. Sí, sí. Hoy tenemos una presentación revisando los cambios que la Junta de Comisionados del Condado hizo a los documentos propuestos del plan de Wimauma. Después de la presentación tenemos tiempo para responder a sus preguntas. Y ahora lo paso a Yacer para presentar la información.
Muy buenos días, saludos, muchas gracias por venir, aunque sea muy poco. Es importante que tu participación en este evento. ¿Qué ha pasado? ¿Por qué nos encontramos aquí? ¿Por qué nos encontramos en este evento? En primer lugar, sabemos que tenemos un plan comunitario y ese plan comunitario fue revisado por la Junta de Comisionados del Condado. Entonces, hay unas revisiones que vamos a explicarles en cierto detalle ahora mismo. Primero vamos a resumir, a explicar cuáles fueron esas decisiones y después vamos, cuáles son los pasos a seguir una vez que ya que las acciones fueron implementadas, ya que fue transmitido, qué va a pasar de nuevo. Y cualquier pregunta que tengan, estamos listos para responder. Entonces, vamos a recordarle un poco we can see. Vamos a recordar un poco los documentos que estamos revisando en este esfuerzo. El primero es el plan comprensivo del condado. Este plan es que delinea, enumera los requisitos para el desarrollo de tierras, para desarrollo, por ejemplo, un terreno agrícola que vamos a construir casas, edificios y otras cosas. Ese plan que regula eso. O sea, hay varios elementos, un elemento de comunidades habitables, otro es elementos del uso futuro, y esas son de las cosas que queríamos saber de ustedes, por ejemplo, qué se va a enseñar aquí, qué va a pasar acá, esto va a ser comercial, esto va a ser residencial, etcétera, etcétera, uso futuro. Y el plan comunitario, que eso es también lo que estamos revisando ahora. Claro, vamos a recordarles que hay dos secciones de Wimauma. Una es lo que le llaman Downtown Overlay o la superimposición de Downtown, que va a tener un desarrollo más comercial residencial, ¿no? Ahí no ve la casa un poco más pequeña, pueden haber dos plantas posiblemente, comparado con lo que le llaman el Wimauma Village Residential, que eso ahí donde va más o menos más esparción, las casas son más separadas, hay más patio. Entonces, esas son las dos comunidades que estamos viendo. Entonces, cada vez que yo le mencione algo, vamos a ver cómo se aplica a las dos regiones. Nosotros queremos más densidad para desarrollo comercial y lo otro que es más residencial y más esparcido, que ustedes están más acostumbrados a ver sus árboles, áreas verdes, etc. Entonces aquí se muestra el mapa. Entonces el downtown, esta área aquí del downtown, ahí donde llega el agua y el servicio sanitario del condado, en esta área de aquí. Entonces, esta área afuera, esta área azul, ahí todavía no llega. No está preparado para llegar, por ejemplo, un servicio sanitario a nivel del condado. Entonces, por eso es que el desarrollo es distinto en las dos. Uno es más densidad, más se puede caminar más, y otro es más lo que están acostumbrados, que es una casa aquí, una casa allí, más espacio. ¿Qué pasa? Como hablamos anteriormente, hay lo que le llaman el concepto de beneficios comunitarios. Entonces, cada vez que una persona quiera desarrollar una propiedad, especialmente más ahora en el área esa de la residencial, solo se permiten una casa por 5 años en esa área, porque queremos que se quede más o menos verde, ¿no? Pero si ellos quieren aumentar esa densidad y vamos a poner dos casas por acre, necesitan proveer un beneficio a la comunidad. Estos tienen muchos beneficios a la comunidad, que vamos a describir algunos aquí, pero tienen muchas opciones. Queremos ser lo más flexible posible para que la persona tenga el incentivo de cumplir y de brindar su beneficio. Entonces, primero es Otra cosa que dice aquí y que es bueno recalcar, si el desarrollo tiene más de 50 acres, necesita juntarse con la comunidad, con el distrito escolar, porque ya estamos hablando de una vecindad de muchas personas. Entonces queremos que las escuelas estén alineadas, queremos que el condado sepa que eso viene, todo esté alineado para que no haya crecimiento desorganizado. Entonces, ¿qué pasa? Como habíamos hablado, entonces, hemos estado debatiendo, ustedes saben que tenemos ya casi 2 años en esto, más de 2 años en eso ya, bueno, casi 2 años. Y tenemos un grupo de beneficios que hemos probado. ¿Qué pasa? Que la Junta de Comisionados, dentro de sus poderes, puede revisar estos beneficios, y eso es lo que han hecho, y eso es lo que vamos a discutir. Entonces, lo primero es, ahora vamos a entrar en muchos detalles, les pedimos su paciencia, pero hay que realmente describir eso, porque es importante saber qué fue lo que cambiaron. Y aunque tal vez no se entienda ahora, pues ustedes tienen una copia y le podemos dar otra copia y se la pueden llevar y pueden comentar y pueden llamarnos cuando si necesitan. Pueden llamarnos personas que estén aquí, personas que estén también en Zoom, porque nada más son ustedes. Lo primero es, lo primero que se elimina, entonces aquí, para explicar cómo se los rojos, eso indica añadiduras, cosas que le sumaron. Y lo que está aquí en rojo tachado diga que se fue removido. Entonces, lo primero que vamos a hacer aquí es que se removió la última oración para proyectos externos. Entonces, la otra que dice aquí son cosas añadiduras. Lo primero es, ¿cómo se sabe si un proyecto está suficientemente maduro para entrar en esta área? Entonces, se le puso el criterio. Aquí, primero es, ¿qué indica que un proyecto tiene la madurez suficiente? Primero que dice aquí. Una de las cosas que vamos a evaluar lo siguiente. Si un proyecto largo tiene puntualidad, no supone que está, que tiene y que está adecuado de empezar. Es un proyecto que capture. Aquí durante la reunión nosotros se nos habló de que tenemos que ir lejos a buscar, a comprar ciertas cosas, tenemos que ir lejos a hacer ciertas cosas, tenemos que ir lejos para ir a algunas escuelas. Entonces, eso se dividió ahí diciendo, si un proyecto no trae negocios o otras cosas aquí que para que ustedes no tengan que viajar lejos a buscar eso, entonces tal vez no está listo para empezar. Entonces, eso es lo que estamos hablando aquí. Entonces, ellos dijeron, ¿cuáles son los criterios que un proyecto necesita para empezar? Y uno de ellos es que, por ejemplo, otro tipo de tienda, otro tipo de negocio, para ustedes no tengan que ir a arriba vivo a diferentes sitios a buscarlo, para que se queden aquí en esta comunidad, para que el dinero que generen aquí sea un dinero que se quede dentro de la comunidad. Otro es una propuesta que no fue adoptada. Hay propuestas que no fueron adoptadas y recordemos que cuando se tacha así es que no fue adoptada. Fue que todavía se sigue discutiendo lo que se llama una transferencia de desarrollo, en términos de que si yo estoy fuera del casco urbano, del downtown, y quiero mandar desarrollo a downtown, ¿cómo eso se va a implementar? Todavía estamos discutiendo eso. Pero parece que hasta ahora mismo, aunque la idea tiene mucho tiempo, se debe transferir el desarrollo, tiene mucho tiempo y tiene mucho desarrollo y en muchas partes del país se cumple, todavía aquí los comisionados no estuvieron de acuerdo con eso expresamente, o sea, le quitaron. ¿Qué pasa? Los comisionados vieron la lista larga de beneficios comunitarios que teníamos. Recuerden que discutimos diferentes beneficios comunitarios. Y ellos dijeron, pero algunos de estos beneficios no son beneficios porque tienen que hacerlo como quieran. Entonces, vamos a moverlo a otro, vamos a quitarlo de todo como beneficio porque esas cosas tienen que hacerse. Por ejemplo, una escuela. Si el desarrollo es suficientemente grande, tienen que hablar de traer una escuela porque no hay suficiente escuela. Entonces, antes era un beneficio, entonces yo lo quitaron. Es un ejemplo, por ejemplo. Esto tiene, el acuerdo de estimación alternativa de la tarifa de movilidad. Hubo un acuerdo que se mencionó, que se llama, tiene un nombre complicado, alternativa de la tarifa, movilidad. Eso fue eliminado. Entonces, como fue eliminado, lo vamos a explicar mucho, pero se fue eliminado. Sí.
Okay.
Entonces, hay opciones que fueron movidas. Por ejemplo, esta opción, porque hubo varios niveles. Por ejemplo, si tú tienes 50 acres, tienes que hacer estas cosas, tienes menos acres, tienes que hacer estas cosas. Entonces, fueron opciones que fueron movidas, en este caso de usos no residenciales, fue movida del nivel 2 a nivel 1. Sí, eso que estamos viendo aquí. Sí. Otro beneficio comentario, el número 14, o sea, el 10 y el 14 fueron movidos, eso que estamos diciendo aquí. Y el 14 es lo que le llaman el atrapatodo, en términos de que si por algunas circunstancias de la vida una persona que quiere desarrollar una propiedad parece que nada califica para aquello como beneficio comunitario, el número 14 como que se impone para que ellos tengan que hacer algo, para que todo el mundo tenga que hacer algo. Eso es lo que llama el atrapatodo. También hablamos del transferencia de desarrollo. Gracias por su paciencia, pero esas son las cosas que hay que hablar de la minuta y hay que meterse en la ley, porque lamentablemente eso fue lo que pasó cuando fue la comisión. Entonces, hasta ahora puede que hoy mismo no tenga sentido, pero si llaman a uno, si toman su tiempito, todo va a empezar como a caer. Entonces, lo primero es, si aquí se habló de eso anterior, en la reunión anterior, y es que lo siguiente, si yo te puedo transferir desarrollo de mi propiedad a otro lado, ¿eso cómo cuenta en relación a espacio abierto? Entonces, había un temor de que eso iba a sacarlo de la ecuación, pero no, tienen que contar todos los acres que están en desarrollo, no solamente los acres que se quedan en el sitio. Hubo discusión sobre lo que llaman el vecindario verde. Eso es innovación de cómo se ven las casas, cómo se usar menos aire acondicionado, cosas así, porque están construidas de una forma que retienen la temperatura interna, pero eso se eliminó por ahora. Otra cosa es el 25, seguimos en términos de la matemática del desarrollo, en términos de que el 25% de estos proyectos grandes todavía sigue como accesible. Vamos a suponer que construyan 100 casas y haya un parque. Ese parque tiene que tener acceso al público en general. No puede estar detrás de la propiedad, no puede estar detrás de puertas, tiene que estar sobre la propiedad. Y tiene que ser mantenido por ellos, por las personas que están en ese desarrollo. A menos que el privado quiera hacerse el cargo. Okay. Entonces, el beneficio número 12, pues, son docenas de beneficios. Fue movido, se eliminó, se eliminó. Y el 13, esto fue un error de nosotros y ellos lo captaron y lo eliminaron. Entonces, el beneficio número 6 que estaba en otro lado del documento fue movido aquí. El beneficio número 6 habla, si me permite, hablando de qué pasa con sus usos comerciales dentro de downtown, etc. Esto lo dejamos aquí en inglés, pero sobre todo tienen copia de lo que yo he hablado. Este es un resumen en limpio de lo que yo he hablado. Hola. Ya casi terminamos. Entonces, casi por último. Entonces, ¿qué pasa? Esto es lo que explicamos. El 12 de agosto hubo la audiencia, ahí fue donde cambiaron, ¿no? El 12 de agosto. El 18 de septiembre hay una reunión de la comunidad, esta es la reunión de hoy. El 14 de octubre está la audiencia para adoptar el plan. Y el 31 de diciembre se cumple lo que le llaman el moratorio, el famoso moratorio de construcción. ¿Alguna pregunta, alguna respuesta? Estamos listos para comentarios. Si no, ustedes tienen alguien en la línea en el Zoom o en el chat. No hay tampoco. Anybody online with questions, please? Nobody? Okay. We good? Okay.
We're good.
Okay, entonces esto concluye la presentación.
Yep, no questions online.
Okay.
Jennifer.
Oh. Muchas gracias por sumar su tiempo en este sábado precioso que tenemos. Pero yo sé que ha sido mucha información. Estamos, Sofía, yo y Jay, dentro de su capacidad, estamos listos para cualquier tipo de pregunta. Pero la mayoría del plan sigue, que ustedes han visto, sigue para adelante. Lo que hicieron fue algunas cosas que cambiaron de sitio, pero la esencia, y pueden preguntar las organizaciones locales, la esencia del plan todavía se queda. Y nosotros estamos esperando para la otra fecha de la adopción. Muchas gracias. Yes. Yes.
Actualmente la opción de beneficios comunitarios del referido derecho de desarrollo deja un potencial de generar dentro de Wimauma abierto al intercambio a otras áreas afuera de Wimauma. Es la intención del TBR quedarse dentro del WCR2 o abrir la otra área.
She's saying they allow that now to like transfer anywhere else, but I think it's
Ya, ahora solamente hay una área para recibir y ese es el Downtown Wimauma. Ahora
exclusivamente.
Sí, pero
basado en, tú sabes, lo que pasó en la comisión y el fail motion de la moción que no pasó de Commissioner Overman.
sí.
Eso no está claro.
Jay, the TDR, there was just some questions in terms of like, is it still exclusively to the downtown core that you can transfer, or is that still open? Anyway.
So the idea of the TDR is that it would go into the downtown or other designated areas in the county. There are no other designated areas though currently in the county.
Okay, if I may. Entonces, la idea es, como usted acaba de sugerir, la idea es que se transfieran esos créditos de desarrollo al casco urbano, al downtown. Y otras áreas, pero ahora no están otras áreas especificadas, pero sí puede que en un futuro eso pueda expandirse, pero no tenemos razón para creer que eso va a pasar ahora mismo.
Sí, pero ahora, como está, la que están generadas dentro de WR2, se intercambiaría solamente el recibo, el área que recibió.
Sí.
No quiero mucha claridad.
Sí, exacto, ahora mismo, pero dicen esa área que está específicamente designada y otras. O sea, hay otras que ahora mismo no está designada, pero eso tiene que designarse para poder hacerse. Pero ahora mismo, la única área que está nombrada específicamente es el casco urbano, el downtown overlay, como dicen ellos.
Okay. Por ahora está bien. Seguimos con las preguntas después.
No problem. Any other, okay, cualquier otra pregunta. You got it. Okay. Muchísimas gracias. Otra por esa oportunidad siempre.
Hello, everyone. I'm going to start right here in a minute. You guys would like to take your seats.
I'd like to invite everybody to sit And we'll start right here. Our presentation. So for those of you who don't know, my name is Sophia Garantiva. I'm a senior planner with the Planning Commission for Hillsborough County. And this presentation, we're going to just go over some of the changes that the Board of County Commissioners made at the August 12th public hearing in regards to the proposed land development, future, the future land use and livable communities elements of the comprehensive plan. So quick agenda. We're going to go over the BOCC's decision, review the actual changes line by line, go over the next steps, and then we'll have a few minutes for Q&A. Before I go into the overview of the BOCC decision, though, I am going to bring up a couple slides just to refresh everyone's memories on certain concepts. The policy documents. So throughout this process, we have been dealing with a lot of different documents. So this is a graphic to kind of help everybody understand the relationship. We have been working mostly within the comprehensive plan, and the focus is on the two blue, if you could see, the livable communities element and the future land use element, as well as the comprehensive plan. But for this presentation, we're just focusing on the two in blue. We've also been working on developing land development code language for the Wimauma downtown overlay and the Wimauma Village residential 2. And speaking of the Wimauma Village residential 2, this is the main area of our focus, and this is the future land use category, so falling underneath the comprehensive plan under that future land use element. Right now, as it stands, you are allowed to develop 1 unit per 5 acres, and with if you meet certain criteria, you can develop up to 2 units per acre. One of the changes overall that we've been doing with this process is introducing community benefit options as one of those criteria to get to be eligible for the 2 dwelling units per acre. So this will be done through the plan development process, and all new development in the WVR2 would be required to provide a community benefit, and the number of those community benefits will depend on the size of the project itself. And a couple more parts of the community benefit options. Any development with more than 50 or more units will have to meet with the school district, the county, and hold a community meeting prior to submitting their application to discuss the actual benefits that they'll be, any developer will be choosing with the community to make sure it meets the intent of what you guys want. And also, more recently, we divided the community benefits, classified them into 2 tiers according to the priority. So, for example, tier 1 would have a higher priority to get those specific community benefits, or to require those specific community benefits over the rest. So the BOCC decision on August 12th. The BOCC unanimously voted to transmit the land use amendments for livable communities and the WVR2 land use element to the Florida Department of Economic Development with modifications that we're going to go over for official state review. So that was their decision on August 12th. Now this is where it gets a little technical, but just bear with me. I'll try to get through this as easy as possible. The future land use, one of the first changes was to future land use policy 48A7, which was to delete that last line you see in red, excluding considerations of capacity projects external to projects in review of development applications. What that essentially means is during review, as part of the overall transportation and mobility review, prior to them striking this out, reviewers could not include capacity of other projects external to the project at hand during their review. Now they can. So that's what that means. Future land use policy 48A14, the board added language on the timeliness of development. So this is just another indicator in addition to the 3 that are in black right now. This additional indicator deals with trip capture, which is transportation concept to limit the amount of vehicular trips going outside of a project. So what they're trying to do is to keep is to make this an indication of timeliness. So if a developer does not demonstrate that they have captured trips either by including mixed use development in the project or by providing a non-residential use along 674 within 2 miles of the project, walking or driving, that it would not be considered a timely development.
Right.
Yes.
So does that mean the developers are going to be required to put in some kind of commercial space bordering on 674, and or are they going to be widening 674, and are they going to be providing lighting on 674?
Good questions. I'll get through all the changes and we'll come back to that if you don't mind.
I have other questions on other things you've gone over already too.
Yeah, no worries. We'll come back to you and we have plenty of time to answer any questions. No problem. There was also a motion to create the Wimauma Community Plan Action Task Force, as well as one motion that did not pass to add language to the community benefit option number 7, dealing with transfer of development rights. And we'll go into that in just a minute. So along the lines of the community benefit options, the board made quite a few changes to the community benefit options lists. The first one being removing community benefit option number 1, which required 6 building types, building form types be used in a property, in a project. Right now, the code would allow for 4 as requirement. This allowed the developer to go up to 6 and count that towards a community benefit. This has been eliminated, and the board now has directed staff to include this in the LDC as a requirement. So now, instead of requiring 4 different building types, it will go up to 6.
Question. Building types, meaning single occupancy, double occupancy, high density occupancy? Is that what building types means?
There's different building type forms. So right now there are 6 different building type forms. Civic, there are cottage style homes, single family style homes, a multifamily style. So there's all these different types of forms. And that's what this is referring to.
Who's going to regulate the amount of land that's given? There's so much here that if it keeps going, we're not going to be able to remember.
Let's do the presentation first.
Are you in charge? So maybe you should
Sir?
listen- maybe you should listen as
No,
well.
I appreciate the help, but we will answer all the questions at the end. So
Practice listening.
if you don't mind, I'll continue and we won't skip over you or any of your questions.
Thank you.
All right.
As we move forward, anybody gets a copy of the presentation, because we know it's very hard to read. So anybody can have one in their hand, if you don't, then you don't. Thank you very much.
All right, so the next major change was the removal of the mobility fee alternative satisfaction agreement from the list and the removal of the land dedication for public schools from the community benefits list. Again, this doesn't mean that schools won't be cited or not permitted to be cited here. This removes them from the list where they would count as an incentive for a developer. So these things could still occur. They just wouldn't be counted as a community benefit, if that makes sense. One of the other changes was the relocation of community benefit option number 10, which is the construction of new non-residential uses in the Wimauma downtown Main Street core, or downtown east, from tier 2 to tier 1. As I mentioned before, they were divided into 2 tiers, so this just moves it up on the priority list. Another change was the relocation of the community benefits number 14, which we call the catch-all benefit from tier 2 also to tier 1, again, moving it up on the priority list. Another change was language that was added to the community benefit option number 7, which is the transfer of development rights, where any sending area cannot count towards the open space requirement for that project. So what that means is any land that is, any units that are transferred over, that area that is leaving those units, that area cannot count towards open space, the required open space for that project. Also removed from the list was the green and LEED neighborhood design for as a community benefit. Language was also added to community benefit number 11. And this was for internal open space, and recreation space that exceeded the regulations by 25%. This land, even though the intent was always to make it public and accessible, the board added this language just to solidify that. So that means it can't be closed off to the public. The removal of the dedication of additional on-site land for neighborhood center in the community benefits list. And the neighborhood center would only kick in after if a project was 100 acres or more. Removal of additional 25% landscaping screening. This was erroneously included. So this was not a community benefit from the beginning. It was just included in this draft. So we removed that. And then finally, the relocation of community benefit number 6, which is the construction of on-site non-residential uses within the required neighborhood center from tier 1 to tier 2. So it dropped a little bit in priority. And for reference, this is what the list as transmitted to the state looks like, all consolidated with all the changes included. So you can see there's 4 under tier 1, and then there's 4 under tier 2 for a total of 8. So the next steps, we went over the changes that came from the BOCC transmittal hearing from the 12th. Today is the community meeting where we're going over all these changes. October 14th is the BOCC adoption date. And then December 31st is the end of the moratorium. So that's the construction moratorium that's currently in place for Wimauma. And now I will open it up for questions. We also are recording this on Zoom. And so for anybody who is on Zoom, if you have any questions, if you could please come up to the computer over here. I know that was a lot of information, so if anybody just needs a minute.
This is a real simple one.
Okay.
I'm Christina Bosworth. I live in Wimauma. I'm also in the Wimauma Community Development Corporation. I have a question about the timing, that last slide, Sophia.
Sure.
The public hearing that's going to be held on October 14th. That
Yes.
then it has to be after that. That's the end. It gets transmitted to Tallahassee. Is that correct?
So the draft was already transmitted to
It
Tallahassee.
has been. Okay.
Yes. So they are reviewing it right now.
Okay, so you do believe that it will all be done in time for December 31st, that Tallahassee will approve? Are we on track for that? Okay.
Yeah, so the way, and again, my name is Jay Goff with the Planning Commission. So the way it works is you will go ahead after October the 14th, we will transmit back up, because that is the adoption year, right? So effectively, the Board of County Commissioners will adopt, not adopt, or adopt with changes. And at that October 14th hearing, whatever it is that they do, our job is to send that then to Tallahassee. We send it to Tallahassee for them to certify it. There is a 31-day challenge period. That 31-day challenge period starts after Tallahassee tells me they have received the package we sent them and they deem it to be complete. So what we would like to say is that most likely around Thanksgiving, this will be totally adopted and will be the new regulation. And the moratorium again expires December 31st.
Oh, and the, no,
Go ahead.
no, go. You can go. Yes, yes.
Yeah, I have a very serious question about how this has come about and why we're where we're at and how you expect to make it work. I've been here for 50 years in the same place, the last 5 of which I've spent trying to get the county to deal with a home they allowed to be built on a 10-foot high mountain in the middle of a floodplain, which is a violation of federal, state, and local law. And they have hidden it, shuffled it from department to department. It's been around the gauntlet, and nothing's been done. So my concern is, does any of this mean a thing or not? Because right now you can drive through Wimauma and I can show you fences that are too high. I can show you 4 houses on 2 acres. I can show you every kind of violation in the world. And Hillsborough County does zippo. They do nothing. They tell you that they can't file a complaint, that a citizen has to file a complaint. Really? Well, I tested that. I gave them a complaint through someone else, and their people filed a complaint against me to make me fix it. Just to make sure that I knew I wasn't dreaming. Hillsborough County speaks with a forked tongue. They do not tell the truth. They have been lying to us for years. And now you're building up this entire area 4 to 6 feet above elevation. And where is that water going? On all of us that lived here for 50 years. We have no way to protect ourselves except go to Hillsborough County Commission. We do that through the planning and use and so forth, all the complaints we have to pay used to be $272. Now it's $480 something just to file a complaint against somebody who's violating the rules. And then when you go up and you're sworn in a county meeting to tell the truth, I could not imagine month after month after year that county representatives, that people who were filing for the opportunity to make zoning changes and other kinds of changes, people that were ordered to correct things, and their licensed attorneys in the state of Florida qualified to practice under Hillsborough County, under the commission. And I kept seeing them lie, and I would prove they were lying. But guess what? I finally had to ask the county attorney representative in a meeting on the record. When we swear to tell the truth, what's the penalty if we do not? There is no penalty. It's a sham. It's a farce. It's a joke. And Hillsborough County government is the father of it all. And we're going to pay the price here because somebody is getting campaign contributions from developers. And that's exactly what this is all about. And you people are being used and manipulated too, because you probably do believe in this. You probably believe this really works. Who are you kidding? How long have you been here? How many times have you had to go up there to Kennedy and talk to those people on a deaf ear? Stand there and swear to tell the truth and lie through their teeth, and nobody cares. Because it's all about the money. And it's still about the money. This is just a cover. This is just a cover for Hillsborough County politicians to continue doing what they've done for over 100 years. It goes all the way back to Sheriff Colbert with $10,000 of leader money buried in his backyard. He got to claim it, just pay taxes on it. Because nobody could prove it was leader money. And it's been that way forever. When are we going to do something serious? I'm flooded now every time there's 4 inches or more of rain. I've been there 50 years until Hillsborough County gave a man a permit, a millionaire, a permit to build a house on a 10-foot high, 300-foot long dike in the middle of a flood zone. a violation of federal, state, and local laws. And they've still done nothing. But I finally fought them to the point that they had to do something, so they put a lien on the property. He couldn't sell it without telling anybody that wanted to buy it. I just talked to the new owner last week. He doesn't know anything about it. He said it must have been clear because the bank gave him a loan. But I can't find out any information. They told me they'd let me know when anything took place. Nobody's told me. Now, when I call and ask the county office, why hasn't somebody told me what's going on? This property has changed hands already. We're not allowed to talk about private property. Well, only we've been talking about private property for 5 years there. And we still have the same problems. And it's still killing the wildlife. And it's still drowning the people that have been here for 50 years. And y'all want us to believe that this is going to really take place.
So I appreciate your passion. In the 18 months that we've been doing this, I've heard some very passionate conversations. And I really appreciate you coming out and having that conversation with us, because that is something that has to be said, right? It is not every single time we do this, everybody says, yes, let's build some subdivisions, let's get some homes in here, let's bring some schools out here. There is, and have been, and always will be, folks who have been here for a long time, and they want their peace of mind, their quiet, this is what they've been to. Notwithstanding your issue with the flooding, which is a separate issue all in of itself.
Oh, tell me.
You know, but to this end, I do want to say one of the first things when we had our community meeting back in March of 2020, before COVID all started, one of the first things that happened is well, the map's not there, but that map was up there, and there were some folks who simply came in and said, are you changing any of this land use? Are the boundaries of the Wimauma plan getting any larger? I said, we don't expect it to. That's not part of what we're doing here. We're working within the boundaries that we already have. And they said, thank you, because I live, you're not gonna get my directions right. I live that way, outside of all of this, another couple of miles. And what you do in Wimauma, you do in Wimauma, but I don't want you coming out here. Because that's their rural lifestyle, right? So that was one of the first things that I got were people that were saying, look, what you have here, work with it. Don't move it anywhere else. So I want to say that that's what we've been working in. What we've been working in is to know that if you're going to build a subdivision out here, 30% of it right off the bat has to be contiguous open space. Where's that water going to go? Where are the wildlife going to go? We want to make sure that not every acre of WVR2 is paved over. That is part of what this is about. That is part of what we've been talking about for 18 months, is having that conversation. Where's the water going to go? Where's the wildlife going to go? There are people that are out here, people have grandkids, and they're like, I want my grandkids, because their mom and dad moved to the city. When they come out here, I want them to be in nature. So even if you live in some of these subdivisions on a 4, 5, 6,000 square foot lot, there's still acreage that's undeveloped that those kids can run around on, that the water then goes into, cheats into, that the wildlife has an opportunity to run through. So I just bring that up because your passion brought that out of me. I wanted to make sure that folks realize that while it's not a perfect system, never has been, never will be for everybody, can't be, right? It just can't be.
No, but it can be more
It can
honest.
be better and more honest. I do appreciate that 100%. And I think that's part of what we're doing here, is to have these conversations and make sure that we give power, right? To say that you do go downtown and voice that opinion, which it sounds like you do. I know from some of the folks in this room, we've talked at length about the difficulties it is to talk to your elected officials and to actually be able to sign up for a public hearing.
Don't get me started.
Right? And battle that to where you can do it. But the only way we ever get to actually have a better chance at talking to that public official, or making sure that somebody doesn't come back in and put another
basically raised field spot next to you on the other side and turn you into a swimming pool, is to continue to have these conversations together. So that I can go down there, you can go down there, Jessica can go down there, Buddy can go down there, Christina can go down there, Gil can go down there. We can all go down there and have that conversation together.
Well, that's wonderful to have the conversation, but what I'm getting at is they're going ahead to make firm plans. And let's assume that we all believe all the stuff they put there. And it goes into some sort of a document that says this is the way it's got to be done. They didn't continue Horizon 2000. They didn't make any of these people live up to anything out here.
Yes.
Do you realize there's families living in animal cages on Westlake Drive?
I do know that there's certainly some substandard housing out there. Yes, sir.
Yeah, does anybody do anything about it?
So, yeah, code issues are one of the things that is an actual goal within your community plan, has been since 2006, 2007. It's difficult, isn't it? The idea of it, of what we do here, being able to have that plan, being able to write down the conversations we have, try to put it into policy, and then sometimes, I hate to say this, it goes in a cubby hole back there. There's no cubby holes back there. That's not what we want out of these plans. We want these plans to effectuate change and be able to guide this community through in the 21st century. So it is imperative that we do have those conversations, and that when you do see an issue for code, is to make that call. I know what you said. You said the county doesn't do it. You have to make the call. That is the issue that is at plan today. That's just the way it is.
It isn't the only issue,
You know,
because just yesterday
yeah.
I drove behind the shopping center at Apollo Beach and saw two of your code enforcement pickup trucks sitting there in the shade, enjoying the afternoon because it was too soon to clock out. And they weren't gonna do anything else.
I hope you took a photo of it right now.
No, I'm not gonna take a photo.
I'm just saying, I know some people that certainly would.
Well, I've been through it too many times. The people that have told me the truth from the county office, one of them doesn't work there anymore by quitting because they couldn't take the pressure, and the other one was fired, and the head of the department was transferred in the middle of our problem. And nobody knows what's going on.
Sure.
And it's gonna keep going on until we stop this at some point. We couldn't get a red light at 674 and 301 until 3 people died in accidents, because the actuarial table said $50,000 a person. They had to pay for the light. We're killing them all the time at Bonita Drive and 301. What are we doing about it? Nothing. This is life and death. This is peace of mind. This is America. We're not a bunch of pieces of chess on a board. But every time you get something that people agree on, like take Horizon 2000, how quick did it take them to drop that like a hot potato and switch to something else?
Horizon 2000 is an older planning document, predates the comprehensive plans.
5 to 10 acres per lot. And they started cheating it right away.
Jay, before you.
I'm sorry, I didn't mean to take all this time. I've got 5 years of help.
Please, sir, come on up.
Thank you, though. Thank you.
Good afternoon, Peter Leota, Wimauma. I want to start off by apologizing for being rude and for apologizing for being rude. I apologize for my rudeness. Okay, the dark blue shaded area, how much total acreage is that? Approximately, I don't need the exact number.
I don't have the number, I'm sorry, off the top of my head. It is a couple thousand acres.
Okay, on the flu, 48.7.
Mhm.
It talks about removal of the last sentence, excluding consideration of capacity projects. What does capacity mean? Does capacity refer to high density?
No, it's talking about roadway capacity.
Okay. Further down, 4814. The Wimauma Village downtown in the urban service area.
Mhm.
So my question is, and it has to, it takes in what this gentleman was just saying. Is there any plan for the developers, in addition to putting water removal and sewerage in their developments, to put water removal, improve water removal and sewerage in the Wimauma Village downtown and in the urban service area?
So they can petition to do certain things like that. That was one of the community benefits. The MFASA, which is the, I remember the mobility satisfaction.
Agreement.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. So it's basically one of the ways in which a lot of things used to get done when we did have transportation concurrency. The state took away the transportation concurrency. The MFASA was actually removed for consideration by the board. So the Hillsborough County does have, has started having the conversations to actually provide upgraded sewer and water capacity. Their first availability to do some of that, from my understanding, is fall of 2022, down 674 to remove the low pressure sewer system. Upgrading that sewer system would allow things as simple as dry cleaners, laundromats, and car washes to be here. You can't do one of those today because the sewer system can't handle it. So I am not that type of a planner, but from what I have heard, fall of 2022 is the first time that will be discussed.
Now, what about in the same area along 674?
Mhm.
In the Wimauma Village downtown and urban service area? Is there any plan to widen those roads with turning lanes? And the reason I ask that is because if you are on 301 19th Avenue, from 301 to 41, developments have gone up from one end to the other, but the road hasn't been improved and the road has become a nightmare. And this seems to be the way that Hillsborough County does business. Let's put all the development in, and then when there's a crisis, then we improve the roads. Is there any plan to improve 674? Resurface it, put in turning lanes, put in more lighting? Is there any plan for that?
Do you want to talk about DOT and context classification?
You can take that one.
Okay, all right. So 674, the main road that you guys have down here, is a state facility. As much as Hillsborough County might like to say what happens along it, it can't. That's actually DOT, Department of Transportation, District 7 for the state of Florida. US 301, hence the name US. That's yeah. Yeah. So
Planning Commission planning on petitioning the state to do some road improvement before we put another, how many homes did you say going in?
so yeah, there would be a couple thousand homes.
Couple thousand
Yeah,
homes?
yeah. So exactly, yes. In this plan, we do have cross sections that we talk about for safety improvements, primarily at areas like Lake and 674, which is in dire need of a traffic light. There are other areas that would do well with what we call hawks. It's basically a lighted pedestrian beacon that would allow people to access to walk across 674. It also would provide the lights, which means the traffic would stop, which also means some of the other cars would be able to turn out because traffic would stop. So in the plan, we have those things, but again, the county does not have the ability to tell the state how to operate its road. All we can do is work within it and say, do we want something widened, or do we want something to be the 2 lanes with a center turning lane? Or do you want 4 lanes that don't have a turning lane? Or do you want 6 lanes? You know, that's part of the issue. When you look down at 674 in Sun City Center, they've done a lot of work. They're doing very long turning lanes. They're not widening that road. They're not adding capacity to that road. They've provided very long turning lanes. 100% though, 674 needs work on all sorts of facets. And so that is captured in there. And we do hope that DOT will come out and do some work.
Okay. Another question, is TECO planning on putting another power substation in this area to support the 2,500 new homes going in and the revitalization of the Wimauma downtown area? Is there any plan for another substation in this area?
I do not know if there are plans for it. However, as the power provider, they have to provide power to the homes. So I'm assuming they are going to be coming down here.
Okay. And my final question. And thank you for answering all the questions. Going from the 1 unit per 5 acres to 2 units per 5 acres, can those 2 units per 5 acres be apartment buildings, or is it strictly 1 or 2 family residential homes?
So you can build an apartment. So the Board of County Commissioners during that transmittal hearing changed the forms. Originally, we were asking for 4 forms as the entry. So those four forms would be single-family homes. They could be single-family detached, single-family attached, like a townhouse, right? They could also be civic lots. A civic lot could be something like childcare facilities or a congregate living facility, you know? You'd like your mom to be able to be close to you so you could bring her into the subdivision in a congregate living facility, those type of things. The board wanted 6 different forms. The 6 different forms then means that some of these developments may be required rather than as an option. They may end up, I shouldn't say required, they now have less options to build, and one of those options may be to put in an apartment block instead of putting, say, a civic lot or live work. Now, one of the other things, can the entire development be an apartment? No, because you currently have a bottom floor of 10% of the units and a maximum of 40% of the units. So any apartment building that would be out here could only be 40% of the units that are there. So let's say if you have 100 acres, 200 homes, 40% of those is 80.
What's the vertical height of the zoning requirements? Can apartment buildings be 2 stories or 3 stories and why not?
So an apartment would be 3 stories if they wanted it, because height is not spoken specifically within the comp plan. That's in the zoning, and these are PDs. So we don't have a height restriction for it. So if you ask for, you know, something above the tree line, I have a feeling somebody would say, well, that's not compatible. Or if you are going to do something that's above the tree line, it's going to be in the center of your development and not anywhere near an adjoining property line when people are developing perhaps hundreds of acres.
All right, thank you for your help, sir, and thank you.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you.
Yep, yes, ma'am.
Wondering, it says here, removal of land dedication for public schools from the community benefits list. What exactly does that mean? That they're not going to provide land for future schools?
As part of the community benefit. So they can't, so a developer can't use that as to satisfy the requirements for their community benefits. The Board of County Commissioners felt like that was something that could happen outside and doesn't need to be incentivized. So they took that out, but they could still do that. That's partially why the school board is included in the meetings that that developers have to do when they discuss the community benefit options. Is so if there's a development large enough that, you know, the school board is always looking for sites. So that could be something that they could talk about during those meetings and might go in if the, you know, if the project, you know, is big enough, I guess. So it doesn't mean that it won't happen. It just means that it's not on the list as something they can choose to satisfy that need. Yeah.
But in reality, doesn't that mean it becomes less of a priority?
That's a good point. No, it is.
Yeah.
And that's what I would say to that. That is a good point. You're right. Nothing else to say than that, because these are things that are supposed to be, you know, fulfilling goals of the comprehensive plan, fulfilling goals that you have within Wimauma's community plan. So, but as Sophia said, you're going to get schools, you're going to get parks, you're going to get libraries. Some of them can be changed with a community benefit, and some can't.
If I may, Jake, well, what about a meeting with the school district for some projects? That would be the-
Yeah, so you know, again, if you would like to build 50 or more homes, you're going to have a meeting with community members down here. Same thing if you're up in Palm. You're going to have a meeting with the school district. Same thing up in Palm. You're going to have a meeting with Hillsborough County. Same thing as up in Palm, prior to actually submitting a zoning application. That way, everybody has an opportunity to say, well, what sort of facilities may be needed in this area to better serve
There's only so much land that's available for some of these large facilities. The school districts particularly need sites that may be 30, 40, 50 acres, depending upon the type of campus they're putting in. And they're going to be looking to have those conversations when large property owners come in. They do that currently through a school siting. There's a various interlocal agreements that exist between the school district and the county. And then that is extended to the property owner when they end up going into negotiation for the school.
How is that going to benefit the current residents and not the quote new communities and the new people coming in? How are current residents going to benefit from this? Or are they going to be excluded?
So the majority of the community benefits are designed around being able to have full public access, right? That's why we say public park. Or if it's 25% additional open space, that 25% open space is dedicated to the public. The neighborhood centers in these large subdivisions are supposed to be geared towards public uses, could be community gardens and those types of things for live work units where you might be able to go and have professional services done or whatnot, you know? So it's a give and take of basically what we're trying to do is take the area that is here, which has a variety of different goods and services. And when new communities are built, you're extending that.
So these communities are going to be open. They're not going to be gated communities.
That is correct. The gates are prohibited here.
Okay, thank you. Thank you.
Yeah, they are allowed in Baum. However, you cannot gate off of one of the main roads, like you wouldn't be able to gate off of 672 because that would disrupt the connectivity.
That included in the room or is that?
Well, if somebody's already built something, I can't go back in and change it.
I know, so they're gated, aren't they?
Yeah, yes, yeah.
But the lagoon is also in the urban service area.
Right. Yeah, and WVR2, that's specifically what we're talking about. Yeah.
It used to be that the developers had to put up the money for the planning and the construction of road widening, schools, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. I'm told recently, I haven't been able to verify it, haven't had the time, but I'm told recently that Hillsborough County is the only county that does not require that anymore. And there is no means for Hillsborough County government to levy a requirement against these people. So all we've done is increase their profit.
Right.
And they walk away with more money and we're still stuck with the problem.
Yeah.
We've been promised fixes forever. I moved out here in 1971. 2 months later, the front of the paper was the whole thing said, city of 80,000 homes be built at Sun City Center. 2 years later, 301 was going to be widened to 4-lane all the way to Manatee County. That was 1974, I believe. Okay, we're still not there. And I know we chuckle because it is, but honest to goodness, are we such a lying national peoples that we have begun to accept that lying to us and smoothing it over later is the way we're supposed to do business with each other?
I certainly hope not. Doesn't sound like a way anybody would want to do business, does it?
No, but look what's happening.
So I will say a little bit about the transportation stuff. You know, obviously some things changed years ago in state law. So the way in which monies are now collected have been changed. You know, we have mobility fees that we have now. There used to be that the developer had more of an ability to actually go into negotiation with the county and do things. Now that we have an upfront fee on basically everything you build, whether it's a home or a business or anything else, that's the way in which the government does business. Now, here's the thing about what you said. Things change, don't they?
Sometimes.
So, but think about it. You know, when a lot of us showed up in Florida, we were doing business differently than the way we're doing it today. So if you effectuate change in a couple of years, we may be doing business differently again. I think that's part of the takeaway that you should always have with this is if you don't like the way that the business is being operated right now,
then we should try to effectuate that change. You know, I mean, it's not a cop-out, but if you don't like the way the roads are working within that reason, part of that is to write to your state legislatures, because that Tallahassee has that pool. That's the reason that Florida operates itself the way it does, is through some state law changes.
Well, that may be true, but part of the problem is not with the state, because if you take a look at what's happening with flooding, animal corridors and the rest of it here, you start checking it back like I have.
Sure.
Hillsborough County has been given the authority from the state, and they've been given the authority from the EPA. And Swift mud transfers into stormwater. And everybody, it's like Tammany Hall all over again at the turn of the century in New York, where they asked all those crooked politicians, who did this? And they stand in a circle and they all point to the right.
Mhm.
There's no end of the loop.
Mhm.
I arrived in this state this long. That's how long I was when I arrived in this state. And you know what? Everybody that's tried to change and fix it has been run into the wall. When you can get somebody who's honest enough to tell you the truth in Hillsborough County government, they get transferred or fired or retired. It's crooked as a snake. It is not honest. We're doing what a community needs to do to try to rectify the problems we have. It can't be done if people will not tell the truth. Put it in paper, Horizon 2000, change it 5 years later. To whatever in the world the politicians want it to be, because they're getting the money from the developers, and it's all progress. No, it isn't. No, it isn't. Tell that to the deer they run over out here on 301, the few that are left.
Yeah.
And on and on and on.
Transportation was changed by the state in 2011 with the House Bill 7207. They stated that they're trying to, after the crash, they're trying to revive the state. And they actually stated that no county can get denied a development because of the inadequate roads. So it is a state's problem, and that's who we need to start writing.
Well, we can't even get the state to say it's okay to wear these. Tell me about crooked politicians.
Yeah, buddy. Yes, sir.
The school was talking about taking the school dedication out as a benefit. How does, and I know there's school dedications going on now and in the past before this. So how did that work? Was it just was it a requirement? Was it just something that the developer would do?
Are you asking how a school site is dedicated? Or in the context of the community benefit option?
No, I understand that, but I'm talking about previously in the past years, that there's been school dedication for land, and I was just, was that a requirement during the zoning process, or was it?
No, it's not a requirement. Jessica, I hate to put you on the spot, but have you ever worked within one of those?
I'm sorry, I wasn't paying attention.
No, I was just. Jessica's like, oh, I can't believe I was the one who volunteered to come out to this meeting. No, Buddy was asking about, is it a requirement that a school district be able to talk to a large developer and ask and like, I want your property for the school?
Gotcha. So, I mean, in Florida, we are a very property rights heavy state. Everyone has property, and you obviously want to do what you want on your property. If the government, such as the school district, wants to take part of that property, they have to provide compensation. That's provided in set forth in the federal constitution and in the state constitution. But if a developer wants to come in and they're causing an impact on the school system, because let's say they're bringing in new students and those students need spaces in the school, there is an impact on the school system that the developer is required to pay for. However, that paying for that impact can be done via land dedication or by paying impact fees. So that conversation is always had if a development has school-age children in the development. The developer will, in any case, have to talk to the school board, determine what their impact is going to be, and see what's best for the developer to offset that impact, whether it's land dedication or paying fees. The school board cannot force the land dedication. The developer will always have the option to pay the fees instead of the land dedication. the school board wants land at that location, they have to buy it, or pay for it, and negotiate a deal with the developer. Did that
Okay.
answer your question?
Yeah, so the dedication isn't just them being nice and donating some property. to-
No, no, no.
Well,
You don't break down-
dedication, it's gotta be, the school board has to accept.
Right.
They can't just dedicate bad land that has no value to the school board. The school board has to accept it and say, we like that land, that's at a good location, that's an adequate size, all of this.
Okay, but as we've seen in the past, the county approves all these new developments, but then the school comes in. They haven't been showing up at the meetings, and now all of a sudden they say, where the roads are inadequate to put a school there, so.
I could go off on that.
So the school is gonna step up and start having their say so at some of the rezonings and development stuff.
Yeah, I think really the issue is the school board is a different entity than the county commission.
Right.
And the school board funds schools, builds schools, but the county commission funds roads and builds roads. So when you have, the school board says, okay, we need a new school, we got this location, and then the county comes in and says, great, but the roads can't support that capacity.
Right.
The school board says, okay, great, build new roads, and the county says, no, we don't want to.
Right.
So what do you do? That's a, you know, what kind of button heads.
So if we can't deny the development because of inaccurate roads, but we need the schools for the development, we should be able to deny the development because the inadequate roads for the school to.
Development can be denied for inadequate schools.
Yeah, so schools have concurrency.
Yes, it has been.
Mhm.
Yes. It has. Yes. I can tell you. Yeah.
Jessica, thank you. Sorry to put you on the spot. Just wanted to know if you had ever worked within some of the school sites. But that's a good question, buddy. Does anybody else have a question for myself or Sophia or Yasser or Jessica?
I appreciate the position of honor.
All right. Well, hey, guys, thank you so very much. We really appreciate everything.
It's part of the job description.
Yeah, unfortunately, I do know.